We are waiting for the signal. Don't be nervous. You have to wait. Okay, that's the reason. Oh, signal. Hey, my name is Martin, and I'm so glad to have you here.
And my name is Adam, and I'm also glad to have you all here.
And we will be separated the whole time because we are colleagues. We work together this last 3 years, but I work from Prague and he works from Warsaw. And the last time we met face to face is like 2 years ago. So we are not used to share the same stage.
That's the closest you can get.
That's the closest we can get, yeah. A bit about us. The most important thing is not on the slide. And the most important things for all of you being here probably is that I started with computers in the old era of Microsoft DOS. So I know what command line is. My first IDE was Blue, Turbo Pascal. Then I moved to Lotus Notes. So I do have a developer experience, but those of you who are real developers, you don't consider me a real developer. I never worked with anything called version control and this kind of thing. So if any of you, like Sander, came here for some technical knowledge, you are in the wrong room. This won't be much technical. I'm a consultant for last 15 years, so I might be good for speaking.
But the truth is that Martin is not aware of that fact that since we started using the DX, he actually could be called a developer. But the most important part is that he was mentioning some era before my times, which is clear that he's experienced and I'm young in that company. So not much about me, Salesforce consultant for a couple of years with a couple of certificates without a Twitter account yet, which I will have probably, but you can find me on LinkedIn under my name, so that's it.
We do have some agenda for today. I spoke about DX at the Ringforce, and on our latest project, which started 7 months ago, we decided, or the management decided, to use DX fully. So we were all excited, and during those 7 months, we experienced the good, maybe the bad, the awesome,
the average.
The average, okay, everything. So we should be able to tell you why we decided it. Adam hunted down that answer. We have some pros and cons, and we will show how it works, the whole flow in our case, and what's good about it and what's not. Did I steal it from you, Christian, this one? Or you stole it from someone else? This is DX. Take your time to read it. Basically, DX is something you can use from your command line, so you type the commands on your keyboard, which is this part here, to connect to Salesforce and do something in Salesforce. The idea behind is that it was probably built for developers. And who is developer? Okay.
Martin, raise your hand.
Developers are lazy, so they are looking for ways how to save the energy and time and everything. So that's the whole idea behind. But it's not for developers only, and it's not all or nothing. There's a lot of different flavors, and it's up to you how you will use it. This quote came like 2 months in the project. It's probably still valid. You all know the warriors of despair and these kind of things. So constantly during the last 7 months, we are shifting like from here to here and back and forth. And one day you have a feeling you catch it, but you really know. And the second day, like, so that's normal. Well, at least for me. You might be better, but don't be surprised. The beginning is so easy to do. You just go to that website, you download something, it's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. You just install it, and you open the command line, and it just works. So that's super easy. There's something about Developer Hub which you need to enable for something, probably not for everything, but just do it. There are different limits. I'm still not aware of them, but I'm a consultant, so it works. When you do the first steps, let's skip them because you do them just once, then it works. It has tons of commands. It can do a lot. All these commands have subcommands and maybe sub-subcommands, and you can install new packages and do much more. And this is like the biggest, that's not for me. The truth is that after 7 months, we are using maybe 4 commands. You just repeat them all the time. So don't be scared. At the end, it's like you have your 4 colleagues, you know what their names are, mostly. So that's about the same as the commands.
And the comments in general, the most important ones always come with the force capability. So if by any chance you type in a command and it doesn't produce a result, but instead you get an error, you just type in -f, which is a force use of that command, and it ignores the error.
Yeah, that's one of the most important things we learned during the project.
At that moment in time, I'm always using force.
Yeah. You don't need the command line, most likely as well. You probably use some IDE, some editor, where you edit the code. So it might have an integration. This is the Visual Studio Code from Microsoft. It has integration with Salesforce DX. It has integration with Git. We'll shortly talk about as well. So you can just choose what you want, and you don't need to remember. What's super interesting about Salesforce DX on our project is that everything is DX. Like, we introduced a lot of new things, but the DX is the word which resonates with everyone. So in our project, for us, the DX, well, basically the DX is mainly the scratch org, the ability to pull and push the metadata from your local machine. And then there is something called version control system, or Git. It has nothing to do with DX, but it's part of the whole picture. Then there is something called continuous integration. It has nothing to do with DX after all, but it's part of the picture. And all the deployments. And the funny part, you have like at least 4 of them, 4 different products. But for most people on the project, it's all DX. If anything fails, the DX is a shitty product. So we are not able to push changes in the milestones to production because something. So the DX is not good. Well, actually you are not able to push changes in milestone even via change sets. So it's not a problem of DX. It was really slow at the beginning of the project. Every command we typed in took like 30 seconds to do something. So the DX is really slow. No, we just have a big security on our machines. It took us about 1 month with our security guides, and they found out something they can switch off. So we got from 30 seconds to 5 seconds. We are still not at the phase as Salesforce is, where they type the command, they don't even hit the enter, and it's already done. We are not there yet, but we do have a security. We constantly overwrite something in the Git, which is obviously a problem of the DX as well, but they are just stupid enough. So, yeah, that's the whole picture of a new product. Don't be surprised when you hear something about DX. It not necessarily have anything with DX. It's just part of the new approach.
And why do we use it? Since it's a new product, it's always good to start with the community opinion, which is very limited at that point in time. There is just a couple of information. Why should you use it? Obviously, Salesforce produces a lot of content, encouraging everyone to use it. So here is a couple of examples of arguments why should you use it, starting from better performance with version control, disaster tracking and auditing, which leads basically to the fact that you can take responsibility for your own work, and it reduces the complexity on the release manager function in the business, or other developers functions in the business who in general shall be responsible for refreshing sandboxes, working on that for you, on your behalf, for you admins, for you consultants. But then when you start using that, it gives you the better performance for the whole project, which leads to other arguments like integrate to popular IDE tools. And this is actually quite good for me because, and I will speak about it later as well, because when you start working with something, you need to get the whole picture. You start using the Git, the continuous integration, it all comes into one place, and you need to use it then, because otherwise the X itself is not enough. But thankfully it is integrated with other tools. It is able to migrate data from the metadata schemes that are standard so far, because DX projects use different structure of folders than standard metadata, so that's really cool. Streamlined release management that comes together with the first point. Artifact-based programming concept shifts your minds towards more successful understanding of how things work. That you can exclude one arm from another arm, and when you want to use your finger, you are not using both, which is actually the nature works that way, and the programming concept is also shifting toward that kind of paradigm, which is, from my point of view, really interesting. It also has easy packaging and deployments, and when the price is not an issue in general, it is, you don't have to pay for it, so another cool thing about it. Can you go next?
I especially like the release management, and it's probably a good place to say here that every time we created a new instance and we push the metadata from the Git, where is the source of truth for us? To the new instance. Every single time we've been missing something. Big goals. Yeah. And we can blame the consultants, of course, because we used the Git wrongly, obviously. But the problem is that we weren't aware of it. So be prepared.
And in general, it's not for everyone, to be honest. It's not a tool that everyone should eventually start on their projects, but argument for us, very big one, was the amount of developers and consultants in the developers team. So as the team grows, it's very it helps reduce the complexity of managing the whole releases, deployments, and managing the team at all. So that's quite interesting. And the most important part, that it's hip nowadays. Everyone talks about it, everyone speaks about it, so why don't you try this? It doesn't cost you at all, so let's do it. And yeah, like we spoke, we wanted to give control to the team and the will to learn. I started from the middle, move to the end, and in the beginning. The will to learn in the team is the most important factor in the end, because the team has its own speed. Everyone actually has its own speed. Some of the people are knowledgeable about the techie part of the configuration. Some of them are not literally willing to touch anything that is including command line interface. They are not willing to use Workbench. They are not willing to use any other tools. They would rather just click the buttons. So for everyone there is something, because since it's a new concept and it's also a relatively not too difficult, so both developers who are experienced will find something interesting, and the people who don't have experience will with problems, but eventually learn the tool as well.
The Git control sounds simple, but it can be pretty complex. Especially at the beginning of the project, we didn't have the right licenses in place. And we were able to create a scratch org with the licenses we needed in the future and try how it will look and what it will do. And it was super awesome. Till the moment we took the metadata and pushed them to the version control, because then the whole CI failed. But till then it was awesome.
So it comes with a couple of pros. The pros are mostly project related, so accelerates development knowledge gathering. Is when I remember myself from the times that Martin also remembers because he's older, is that I spent 8 years studying economy, business, consulting, and stuff like that. And it actually became clear to me how it all works, how the lead process turns into an opportunity when I finished one of the first trailheads on the Salesforce platform. And it's the same here. So you can think that using Git is something you should do, but when you try to learn it without a conspect and general understanding of what's inside it and the reason for it, there is actually a gap in understanding how to use it and why to use it. So the fact that you start using the X accelerates the fact that you will learn also the IDE tools, that you will find yourself easily navigating through the metadata. So I really think that is the best pros, and eventually turn most of our team members into developers, except for one. And other pros are techie as well, ability to copy things, update the XML. I will show it later on the slide. Scratch orgs to test things. That's also quite good thing. You know, we all know how to create a sandbox, and it takes time, depending on the type of the sandbox and the further configuration. To test one thing, it's not always worth the time required to do that. So creating a scratch org is really easy, and that also is very good boost to the project structure. And what we did use on the project as well is the community-based code that could be found on the Stack Exchange and other public communities. And we needed to create a scratch org with the packages. Every scratch org for our development needed 3 packages installed. So instead of just creating a scratch org and installing a package individual on each of those scratch orgs, we found the code on the internet with the bash script that initialized the whole thing for us. So we were able to automatically get the scratch org created with all the packages already pre-created inside it. So, cool. Ability to extend it with your, that one was. Once you know the basics, it's easy to progress. It comes with the cons section that is next, can we?
Yeah, sure. I maybe would add to the community code that there's no easy way how to push custom metadata into your org. But there's a plugin you can install in DX and you can push custom metadata. and we use some other for deployment when we just cut part of the files, the XML files.
Yes, so like I said, now this whole thing is clear to me. It is both white, so it's not clear to me. It's yellow and white, so there are some information that there are changes. After initiating myself in the knowledge of the X, I found it easy to navigate, manipulate through the metadata, and just change things. At that point in time, since the process started growing inside my head, I don't necessarily need to always create a scratchwork and install the separate packages manually, but instead I just open the code and change some values from true to false, and that's it. That's basically how it works. I'm not sure if you are familiar with that, but if you're admins and you wanted to hear some boosters for your productivity, there are App Exchange applications, there are Workbench sessions that we had previously, that this all boosts your productivity and speeds up your development process. And the best part is that you can actually do that from the notepad. That's the best.
I would say this is the best to me. We have a lot of developers here, so you don't probably know Process Builder, but the rest of the guys here know the Process Builder. And it's awesome how you can automate things and you just set all the fields you need to set up with some other fields. And to me, it's always a lot of clicking, a lot. And it's super easy. When I go to the metadata, I can just copy and paste the lines. You will easily find which lines you want to copy and paste. And then I just change the field names. And I'm done in 2 minutes, while clicking in Process Builder takes like 20 minutes. Yeah, I have time for my coffee, that's good, but whatever. And for example, we created like 100 of reports during the project. And because the Scratchwork has a default settings, all the currencies were US dollars. The customer is using euros or pounds, I don't know. So we need to change the default currency in all the reports to some other currency. Again, in Salesforce, you just open a report, change currency, save, open. In metadata, search for USD, replace with euro, done.
But there are a couple of cons as well. So it is a bit complex in the beginning, starting from the end.
It's a bit complex after 7 months as well.
It is, but it is also very quickly growing inside you. That when you start, I can almost feel it right now. But when you finally get in touch with the first command, another ones are very repetitive and similar. So a bit complex in the beginning to get in touch, and later very easy and very intuitive to use. But the disconnection part from the beginning is that, well, the disconnection may not be the biggest problem, since in the end we all die alone. But on the project side, everyone is working on their own instance, and on some instances it works for them, it doesn't work for you. We all had that probably, and we needed to deal with that. It's just how it is. Then we realized that it's very similar to the metadata structure. If something cannot be pushed through the scratchworks, pulled from the source, pushed to other scratchworks, retrieved and converted, it is also not convertible on the metadata. So it's very similar, it's changing, but some features, like, for example, we all like the account news component on the layout. It provides a great functionality for the client, so they can, instead of working, they can read newspapers at work, not leaving Salesforce at all. And this component cannot be included in the retrieval mechanism of scratchworks. So these are a couple of, this is one element, but there are others as well. Just like things with profiles and entitlements that with profiles we just gave up on pushing them automatically, but entitlements, the sharing rules, everything that works in the background, and if there are few of them, it's getting tricky because once you push one sharing rule to another environment, it starts the recalculation. You don't have a deferred sharing calculations on your scratch logs, so it starts recalculation, blocking you from pushing another sharing rules to the environment. But force ignore, something very useful, comes handy, and we'll get into that in a moment. We had a couple of initial challenges, and initial challenges were mostly related to the fact before you start a project, you need to remember, yesterday someone told me that you never start a project without a Git repository. And the same is without a structure into scratch logs, because we struggled a lot. Scratch logs come with the configuration file that tells you what features are automatically included, what license is included as well, what elements, what is the name, what's the base currency. Everything is included in the configuration file. If you don't do that, and the client pushes you towards execution of the project, you don't work with DX, then you need to first configure that, you need to prepare the proper structure, you need to prepare the scripts that will run you through, because otherwise everyone will have their own vision on how the scratch org structure should look like. You also need to include those configuration files in the repository so everyone can use it, reuse it, or just send them through email, no matter what, but they need to use it in the same way you do it. So that's a challenge.
Everyone will tell you on every single presentation that the scratch org definition is really important. So we started the project with L1. And it was fine, the first commit was okay, the second was okay, the third was okay as well. Then they set up the continuous integration, it all failed. And it kept failing for next 2 months before we really cleared the definition. And during those 2 months maybe, we find out that we shouldn't commit this field, and we shouldn't commit that field, and we shouldn't do this, and it eventually cleared itself when we set up proper structure.
And all those errors led to the fact that there became to be a big gap between the knowledge of non-techie people and tech people. So lack of knowledge initially was a challenge, and it grew over time. But we had a solution to that.
What's important
to
here say, yeah, I will stop you for a second. At the beginning I had the sentence about those 5% working, doing what I want to do, and 95% of fighting the DX. But this sentence goes with that sentence, because the same colleague who said that sentence were also able, after 2 weeks on the project, to train another colleague how to use it. Told him those 4 or 5 commands and give the training to him.
So initially resolution was introduction of the full role of the release manager that may not be needed for the full-time job along the project, but at least to set up everything for you so developers can fully focus on their work. But later on, the release manager can turn into a person who will just check the release timelines for Salesforce and maintenance slots, which is tomorrow. That's it. Challenges along the way are going back and forth, overriding changes in Git, manual hotfixes on the release train orgs. It's a mess. It's actually quite funny, and I forgot to mention that during the pros coming through, that the pros were project related, but for me and for you could be as well. The X can be a password saver for you. You can not only initialize the scratch org on only scratch orgs and the environment hub, but you can also initialize any org. You can initialize UAT, you can initialize quality assurance or production, pre-production, or just developer orgs that you create for yourself, and you don't need to memorize the passwords. And it also, once you have that memorized, you can pull the data from them. So the fact that we made a couple of hot fixes due to the short timelines could be resolved by connecting the environments itself to the Scratch org and pulling the data. Scratch orgs are not retrieving full config for profiles, so going further. Isn't that?
That's the one, but
yes. So
this is the one.
So we learned that the changes you make to the profiles always need to come manually, because let's say something is false in your profiles. If it's false, it's not getting pulled through the metadata. That's a very big inconvenience, because you don't want them to see all the features, or have access to accounts object, for example. You do that often, right? And if it's not set up to be manually in the metadata, it's not getting pulled, because it treats it as a default configuration of how the objects, how the user permissions, and how the access to the tabs and applications work. So our rule is always make the changes to profiles manually. One rule is not enough, so we introduced another one. But in the end, challenge happened to be a great catalyst for learning new things, and the previous slide was actually the joke that I now understand, thanks to the fact that being a consultant, I understand the DX concept, and maybe some of you will also understand it. But the false ignore is the real false that helps you.
And this one is small but big at the end, because there was a time on the project when I didn't really feel like I wanted to create a new fields, because creating a new field is super easy. It's like 5 seconds. But when you need to check all the profiles and then all these things, I don't want to do that. This is our latest flow, how it should work. I, as a consultant, I'm still looking at it, and it's somewhere branching, merging, request, merging again. It takes a few hours to get somewhere between, and a few days later you have some error. I'm still confused by it. What I like the most about the project is when we start it and we complain as a consultant that it's too complex. We want something, give us our sandbox, we can create everything there, and you can pull it into the Git and do whatever you want, developers. We've been told, no guys, you need to follow the process. After 7 months, they gave up. So I think it came last week, the offer from developers, hey guys, don't you want a sandbox? And we have a lot of branches. They are numbered by the user story number, so I have no idea which branch we speak about. So always when I need to do some change, I first need to go to the user story, then I need to find probably the original user story, then I need to find the branch, then I need to open this picture so I know what I should do. And then the continuous integration goes behind, so it takes, when I merge, it will take a lot of time to check everything, because we check the sketch org and we check that and we check that. So after like 4 hours at the end of the sprint, when everyone's checking the source code in, so after 4 hours I get an error that something happened, and whatever. I found this quote on Blue Canvas blog, and that's completely true to me, because you can aim to have all your source of truth in Git, but at the end, if you can still do something in the production is still source of truth. And especially with the new release, when Salesforce introduces new objects or fields or whatever, you don't have them in your Git. You probably need to get them somewhere.
We don't have much time, but in terms of team adoption, we spoke about it starting from anxiety to boredom. We are not in the boredom phase yet, but at some point in time, but by then, Salesforce will introduce a new concept in development, so it's gonna be fine.
We have the blockchain, so we can go there. Yeah, we spoke about Git a few times. I know 4 commands. I know the Git checkout, Git pull, Git push, Git commit. So I repeat them, rinse and repeat. Sometimes it fails, I don't know why. Sometimes we find out that we rewrote the changes. I'm not able to return back to any commit in the history, so I don't really need the Git because whatever. And it came this funny things when you merge the changes into the Git, you sometimes, like every second commit, you get a merge conflict. And you open the file and yeah, I have no idea why. I have no idea what it means. Because I didn't do it. I didn't even touch it. So let's accept. And this is our deployment flow at one point of time. So yeah, it will take a while before we get through all those phases. Good practices, we already said the scratch org definition. That's probably the most important thing to do. What I heard from all the other developers is that you should be precise in the commits and you should have some structure and you should commit as often as possible or good or something like this. What we don't have is a set of sample data, and I'm missing that every single day. When you create a new scratch org, it's empty. Awesome! And your goal is to create a report. Good luck. Force.com, we spoke about it. Don't be afraid to use it, but don't overuse it. The force ignore file basically defines which elements will not be pushed into the scratch org. So if you have any problem with something pushing to scratch org, just put it into force ignore. But don't be surprised if it's not pushed into the scratch org, so you can't update it later on. Naming convention, it's everywhere, but the best part about the DX, if I should finish on some positive note for consultants, this is the best part.
No, that's what.
Well, I even found that it's even better over the time, because in my instances, I have to change my password every 19 days because I'm too lazy to change it. So before DX, I have to change my password every 90 days, which was a bit annoying. With DX, you don't have to change your password every 90 days. It works with the old something. And the second best thing about it is that it doesn't need the verification code from the email. This is the only reason why you should install DX today, because it will save you a lot.
I think there is another reason to install DX right now and turn your current projects. Don't say I'm not right, because you can download your current project and turn it into a DX project immediately using this one. Now this retrieves, but you can convert it later on using the second mdrp convert command. So go for it.
It just shows how we are between releases. From summer release, they did the force source retrieve. No, source pull. Source pull works the same way as mdrp retrieve, so you have 2 commands less to remember. There are some plans. So we plan to play with the packaging concept, which helps you to structure the metadata in different way and put together the things which should be together. We hope to get the org shapes, which is in beta, I think, which will get the definition from your production or any other instance, so you don't have to spend time with the scratch org definition. And the data setup we already covered. We don't have time, says the cameraman, but we do have a few interesting links. So go to Trailhead, there are some modules, go to Salesforce Ben, there is something, some introduction to continuous integration. And the Gearset have a good ebook about the whole concept, I really like it. And we have last 10 minutes when we want to learn something from you. Actually, we don't, so. But I hope we will learn something from you. So we are happy to chat outside and get some knowledge.